Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our full council today, Thursday, the 20th of April. First item on our agenda is declarations of interest. Do I have any, please? No, thank you. Item 2 on our agenda are minutes of our previous meeting. Are there any issues around those minutes?
This meeting is being transcribed.
I have a
meeting is
proposer
being
and a
recorded.
seconder for them. Councillor Mumford, Councillor Grottick. All those in favour? Thank you, that's passed. Item 3, today, Chairman's announcements. I have 2. The first is that members will have seen our press release about the resignation of our Strategic Director of People and Communities, Aisling Khan. Aisling has been an officer of our council for some 18 years, covering a number of roles, and ultimately one of our most senior officers. In her time, she has overseen a whole range of issues, working with partners and inspectorates, locally, regionally and nationally, and I would like to thank her for all she has helped us achieve for our community. She will leave a void in our organisation, which we will now begin the process of filling, and that is subject of a report in today's agenda. In the meantime, I'd like to wish Aisling, and I know members would as well, all the best in whatever challenge she takes on, and thank you again. The second announcement I would like to make is in regard to the statement issued by the Steamship Group on the 18th of April announcing it has now secured private funding for new passenger and cargo vessels. I wanted to take the opportunity at the meeting today to set out the Council's current position in respect of this latest proposal from the Steamship Group. The bid for levelling up funding prepared by the Council in collaboration with our project partners, the Steamship Group, Duchy of Cornwall and Tresco Estates, and submitted by the Council to the Government in June 2021, included the statement that new vessels cannot be funded by the Steamship Group alone because they have insufficient borrowing capacity, and attempting to prolong the life of the existing vessels would result in significant increases in fares and increasing service unreliability. Passenger and freight revenues would be insufficient to cover loan repayments for new vessels at a level of tariffs which could retain visitor passenger numbers and provide affordable lifeline services to residents of the islands. Only government investment can maintain a sustainable local economy. As recently as December 2022, the Steamship Group's own submission to the Department for Transport stated that levelling up is all capital, so partners understood. In the case of new vessels, the levelling up funds would not subsidise ticket prices, but rather replace private sector debt financing, which has a high cost to the consumer, therefore reducing the impact of capital investment on the prices charged to the travelling public. If all new vessels and infrastructure had to be funded by the travelling public, higher costs would need to be charged, and costs would rise to the point where they discouraged people from visiting. The government didn't offer the islands the second highest levelling up bid in the country of £48 million on a whim. The offer was made because the islands need it. The steamship company's private equity proposal will not deliver levelling up at all, but will in fact make our current situation even worse, albeit with new vessels. The statement issued by the Steamship Group earlier this week marks a significant change in the group's position. It is therefore important that the group are given the opportunity to provide further details of their proposals to both this council and the Department for Transport, and the impact on fares and freight before any further decisions taken in respect of the levelling up funding allocated by the government in response to the original bid submitted by our council. Our council recognises the need for urgency in delivering new ships, but the government has officially recognised this as a lifeline route and will step in to sustain if required to. I would also like to remind members and reassure our community that the council's position remains unchanged. The Ceilings project provides a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and the council will continue to work with government to deliver the project and ensure both the passenger and freight services are maintained and affordable in the future. £48 million is still on the table, offered to these islands, not only to put new ships in the water, but to offer levelling up so that our community and visitors have a good service with affordable fares and freight, as they would anywhere else in the UK. Not leaving our residents marooned on the islands because they cannot afford to travel. Your council allocated this money does not intend to throw it away like the route partnership funding a few years ago. The steamship group have been given every opportunity to come to the table, but have chosen not to. It is still possible for them to come to the table, but your council will only negotiate with an operator who will meet the terms of levelling up for our community, providing affordable fares and freight. Working with government, we intend to achieve this with the money offered to us in order to sustain a future for Scilly. Item 4 on our agenda are questions understanding Order 14. I have none. Item 5 on our agenda, consider reports from committees. I have one from Scrutiny. Councillor Mumford, do you wish to say anything?
Sorry, no, I take it everybody's read the minutes. I don't know if anyone's got any questions. No?
No lights on, so thank you. Item 6 on our...
Proposed acceptance of the minutes.
No, we don't need to at this juncture, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Item 6 on our agenda, consider motions in accordance with Standing Order 12. I have none. Number 7, urgent items. I have none. We move on now to Part 1, Item 8 on our agenda, which is our Council Calendar 2023 to 2024. And this is a report of our Democratic Service and Member Liaison, Andrew Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the annual puzzle I try to solve. So I need your help at this point just to let me know whether or not I've got the answers right or I need to change a few things here. So, Chairman, over to the members.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford.
Yes. I would like to make a proposal that the 9:30 meetings start at 10:30 instead of 9:30, which will actually, if a plane is a bit late for someone like Russell coming, it gives them a bit more time to get here. I don't know what other members think of that. The evening ones, I know Councillor Sims runs his bus, and I just know whether it would be acceptable to him. If they were changed to 10:30, does that make any difference to him? Or just perhaps June and July for the evening ones? And the full council to change the date to the 30th. Is that the day of the election, the 30th? No. So that would, the election would be before that for the new councillor? So that would, the new councillor could then attend that meeting, which is the beginning of the year.
Councillor Sims.
Oh, yes. I agree with I'd second the proposal for 10:30. It's much more useful for me, and I think and the councillor Guy also has issues with this. So my view would be 10:30 is more sensible, and the June and July meetings, if they could be in the evening, that would be extremely useful for me. May would be as well, but I can understand it's a long meeting and we don't necessarily want to do that in the evening.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
No, I'm not keen on the 10:30 start, to be honest. We've had lots of conversations recently about how we can try to make the timings of meetings more suitable for working people. And I think losing an hour and a half or an hour later isn't helpful from that point of view. And then, like today, so many of our full council meetings then have a subsequent meeting on at the end of that, which is going to mean that we're sort of finishing at 1, 2 o'clock, which is, from my point of view, just a day gone at the moment. I can pretty much do a council meeting with a 9:30 start, have the supplementary bit, and still be earning money by 1 o'clock. I think that would sort of pretty much go out the window. So I think I've not heard this proposal before. It sort of just seems to have been put on the table now. I think it would have been better to have had some more conversation through governance or through informal for it to be give it a bit more weight and consideration rather than it just sprung on us, if you like.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Grottick, please.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues. I'd just like to say that I think we should retain the May the 9th date, because bearing in mind it's actually less than a month to May the 9th, and colleagues on the mainland and other colleagues, and so do we, of course, have diaries, and that will already be in there together with travel bookings for some of our offices. So I really do think it's a bit late in the day to start changing May the 9th. With regard to the new councillor that is going to be elected, I think on May the 20th, the last time we actually ran an issue like this, we actually kept a committee meeting seat free so that they would feel welcomed when they arrived, and we could certainly do that at a later date. So I would recommend we keep to May the 9th. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus.
I'd much prefer moving the May meeting to the 25th or the 30th. May the 9th, I think, means the deadline for reports is this Friday. So we're going to have basically pretty much an empty agenda, which will have a knock-on effect for June, when we're having an evening meeting, which will mean that we've got effectively 8 weeks' worth of papers for that meeting, which is going to be, the evening meetings, I understand, but they're always shorter because you have op-island members need to get home. Boats won't run. So regardless, I totally understand the inconvenience it might cause people to rearrange flights and stuff, but I think it's more sensible to think about workload as a whole rather than some emails. As far as the 10:30 meeting goes, I mean, we could have workshops before the 10:30 meeting, so we could start a workshop at 9 in the morning, so, and have council meeting finishing at 1, so we have an afternoon free, so we can all go back to work. So yeah, so it's not, I don't know, a suggestion.
Okay, Councillor Legg.
With respect to the May the 9th meeting, the diary entry is for 6:30. The website reports it as starting at 6, and the report back we're discussing has it down for 9 o'clock in the morning. So there would need to be some confirmation which time you were going for on May the 9th. I would be in favour of the reasons Councillor Marcus points out of moving it to later in the month, either the 25th or the 30th. As for moving to 10:30 times, that would allow myself to get a scheduled boat down from St Agnes, although I may be a few minutes late for the start of the meeting. Other than that, I'm happy to stay at 9:30 if that's the feeling of other members.
Thank you. Councillor Dean.
I think Councillor Marcus's argument is pretty compelling about the number of reports we get in the May meeting and the knock-on effect that would have to the June meeting, which, as he says, is an evening meeting. So I think it would be prudent May meeting till later on in the month, just so that we've got a fuller agenda then and not a full one in June. But as far as timings go, as I said the other day, any time is inconvenient in some ways, so it doesn't really make any difference to me whether it's 9:30, 10:30 or 6 o'clock in the evening.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Grottek.
Just to ask if anyone has checked with the planning officer whether this would have any ramifications for planning.
Yeah.
Councillor Marcus might be able to help.
Check,
That's all fine.
Councillor Sims, please.
Just regarding with the scrutiny committee meetings, the June, September and April ones, and I think I would discuss this with the chair of scrutiny, do what we've done previously and make them 1:30 or 1 in the afternoon. Which is basically because I'm vice chair and I can't attend if it's at 9:30 in the morning.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mumford.
Yes, we can discuss that later. The scrutiny meetings, maybe 1:30, did you say? Is better time.
Yeah, 1:30 or 1 o'clock.
Yeah, 1 o'clock, probably for the scrutiny meetings. Just for the summer.
Okay. Councillor Mumford, you still got your light on? Okay, well, I think we need to take these issues separately. First of all, the May meeting, could I have a proposer, if indeed there is one, for changing the date to the 30th of May and a seconder for that? Councillor Mumford and Councillor Marcus. All those in favour of the 30th of May? That's passed. Thank you. The second item, as I understand, is changing the the time of our day meetings to 10:30 in the morning instead of 9:30. Do I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Sims. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Mumford. All those in favour of that time? At the moment, that's not carried. I can only see 3 hands. Is that right? Could you put your hands up again, please? Councillor Sims, Councillor Mumford. No, so that's not carried. So the time will remain at 9:30. For having evening meetings, are those in favour of having evening meetings in June and July only? Is there a proposer for that? Councillor Sims? Is there a seconder? Councillor Marcus? All those in favour of that? Yes, that's passed. So I'm not sure if there's anything outstanding. Andy, is that all clear now? Yeah. Councillor Mumford.
Well, whilst we're here, perhaps we should propose that the scrutiny meetings start at 1 o'clock, if that's in with my scrutiny people.
That would be June, September, April.
Just for June and September and April, and the January one stay at 9:30.
Okay, you've heard that proposal. Is there a seconder for that, please, Councillor Sims? All those in favour of that? That's passed. Thank you very much indeed. So we move on now to item 9 on our agenda, which is the commercial waste and recycling from self-catering holiday lets, which is the report of our head of an environment, Rebecca Williams. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Chairman. Hope you can hear me. Hi, members. So this report is asking members to endorse a change in the Council's approach to encourage all businesses, including self-catering holiday lets that are producing commercial waste, to pay for that commercial waste that's produced. This was in line with the Controlled Waste Regulations of 2012, which states that waste classification is based on where the waste is produced and the activity which is producing the waste, and clearly includes the provision of self-catering accommodation as commercial waste. Since, I think it was since, for a while anyway, the council has been running a local convention based on a property's rating as to whether or not they pay commercial waste fees based on whether they're an NDR property. And so we're asking the members to approve a change to that to fall in line with the controlled waste regulations. I'm happy to take any questions on the paper.
Oh dear, I know I'm not very popular at the moment, but that's a bit mean. Rebecca very kindly spent some time with me yesterday about going through some of the legislation that is relevant to the mainland, but not to the outer city. So I've got to admit, I was a bit confused. I didn't want the word encourage, I wanted the word enforced. And Rebecca very kindly spent some time with me explaining why we can't enforce it at the moment. Would it be helpful, Rebecca, if you explained it to members, or was it just me being a bit thick?
There's a sense that we're not clear at the moment around a lot of things because we are looking to undertake a review of our commercial waste services this year with consultancy support. There are elements of the Environmental Protection Act which don't apply, so we just need to understand from our perspective what we can do, and there's a lot that we can encourage and ask of local communities, local businesses to come on board with these regulations to ensure that commercial waste is paid for as it should be being done. But we are undertaking this review this year to understand exactly what we can and can't do, where we can take enforcement.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grottek, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to note that it's part of this paper is part of a wider need to understand exactly what we have in respect to the business landscape. Because obviously, in order to plan services, we need to know what we've actually got. And I would argue at the minute that we don't have enough information on what our business landscape actually consists of. And in order to plan services, and this will help, we actually do need to know the numbers of businesses and what they're actually providing on a day-to-day level. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sims.
Paragraph 5, with the council's website details information relating to commercial waste, etc. It's a quote from the website, and the website clearly needs to be changed. If your property is dual rated, blah blah, because of a manager's flat, you're entitled to one residential black bag and one recycling blue household. Well, that's not currently the case because we now have 2 recycling bags. So that's just a small point that the website needs updating. But my I think it's an handy little report. It's useful. And my view really is that as far as possible, the council should stop picking up commercial waste because we're not really resourced for it. Don't have to do it, and if we are doing it, we're probably doing it and not charging enough, so we're squeezing out the private sector, which in a way we shouldn't be doing.
Thank you. Chief Executive.
I think just for clarity on a couple of points, if I may, Chairman, Councillor Sims is absolutely right, but also not quite right. So you're quite right that local authorities should not be the preferred collector of commercial waste. However, we do have an obligation that if we are asked, then we need to carry out that function if they can find no other alternative. So there is a role for local authorities in collecting commercial waste. Some do it more than others. But actually, as Rebecca said, this report introduces a whole host of issues that we'll be coming back with, such as enforcement policy, such as how we collect the money, whether it's charging per sack or whether it's in effect putting a fixed fee annually, which I know the 151 officer is in favour of, but actually regularising this, and then any enforcement route that you go on, the best thing to do is to start off by encouraging first before you jump straight to enforcement.
Thank you, Chief Executive.
As far as possible. So I think we're completely in compliance there.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford, please.
I think that's right.
Councillor Marcus.
I think it's a really good paper. I think it really gets down and starts to open up the the assumptions and the can of worms that has gone through commercial waste through the history of the council. I think it's really good that we can stop the subsidy of the tourism sector from council taxpayers, because even though, you know, tourism is the lifeblood, blah, 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 but we need to know where our money is going, and into owners of holiday lets isn't where it should be going. But I would endorse the paper. I'd also encourage the officer to talk to the banning department. There's currently a consultation just out about creating a register of holiday lets and enforcing banning change of class rules to holiday lets. I would encourage everyone to take part in, including the officer as well. So yeah, make sure we're triangulated throughout the organisation rather than just you guys doing it by yourself. That'd be great.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford?
Thank you, Chairman. I've had quite a few people who have got holiday lets, which they seem to be confused how they're to dispose of their, and one or two of them just said, well, we're just going to put domestic bags out. So you would lose. I mean, they obviously, like we do, we're having ours collected once a week and we use the bags. We're doing that for the moment anyway. But I think just a bit of clarity over the people who have got holiday lets and B&Bs as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Legg, please.
Yes, it's principally about a change in messaging, but I think Councillor Mumford's point there is, would there be a change in collections?
At the moment, not at this stage, as in the council will still collect commercial waste from businesses that require it once a week, in line with the household waste collections that currently happen. For larger businesses that produce large volumes of waste and recycling, we have a subcontract for a private third-party waste haulier to collect bigger material. That's this year, but it's pending the commercial waste review, which we're undertaking this year.
Thank you. Given that this is really just a change in advice to something that's much more clear and starts to bring us in line with the correct business waste collections, I will propose the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus, please.
Okay, I would second that, but I just want to ask a question about recommendation 3. Members approve. You guys communicate stuff. What sort of timeline are we talking about? When is that messaging going to go?
As soon as possible, following decision.
Okay. As soon as possible this month?
Yeah.
Brilliant. I'll second that recommendation.
Okay, thank you. So we have a proposer and a seconder, the recommendations. All those in favour, please. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rebecca. We move on now to item 10 on our agenda, which is our external auditor's annual report for 21-22. And I'd like to welcome Paul Dossett to this item, but it will be introduced first by our 151 officer, Russell Ashman. Thank you, Russell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Today, members, we're bringing to you the External Auditor's Annual Report for the year 21-22. So he's going back a little bit in history. This is the culmination of the work the external auditors have done for that period. You've already seen sign off of the annual accounts and the annual governance statement, etc. They do follow a further work that feeds into the annual report around financial sustainability, governance, and improving the economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. This was introduced last year in 2021 and replaces what was being before the enhanced value for money activity they did. And you'll see the report is set out here. I think it is still, we have a fairly positive report. It's Greens and Ambers. Just to put a little bit of context in history, if you remember, we had partial qualification on our value for money position. That has now moved on to this different reporting, but I think it is also a more positive report as well on the council's progress over that period. I won't go into the detail because that is hand over to Paul Dossett, who will give you a brief run through his report.
Okay. Welcome, Paul. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Russell. As Russell said, this is the auditor's annual report, which is a statutory requirement for us as auditors to prepare this report to cover financial sustainability, governance, and economy efficiency and effectiveness. It also includes just confirmation of the fact that the accounts have been audited and signed off, and that went before you in January, I believe. So, as Russell said, in overall terms, it's a good report. As you'll probably be aware, the local government sector faces significant challenges in a range of areas, and lots of local authorities are struggling a bit with achieving financial sustainability. But I think for you, building on the reports from last year, this is a very positive position. In terms of what we use this report for, we have quite a lot of powers that we can include in this report. So, for example, we could include statutory recommendations in this report. We could include key recommendations in this report, and where we have a key recommendation, the council is obliged to sort of formally respond to those and implement the recommendation effectively. But what we have here, as you'll see from the report, is a series of what are called improvement recommendations, and essentially they are recommendations that can be defined as good practice rather than mandatory. And what we set out on page 48 of the pack is sort of first improvement recommendation about the sort of quarterly performance reports and further work to be done on that. There's a further one on page 49 of the pack around the workforce strategy, obviously recognising that there's the council has a small workforce, so the strategy has to be tailored appropriately. To further recommendations on budgetary reporting, and particularly, the challenges that will always exist over the capital programme, which is is significant for the council. So we have recommendations in financial sustainability. In terms of governance, it's a generally good picture. And in terms of economy efficiency and effectiveness, basically, again, a pretty good picture. As Russell's paper highlights, there's some follow-up that hasn't been quite implemented, and that's sort of set out on page 55 of the pack with some recommendations that haven't yet fully been implemented. So there are some issues there in terms of follow-up, but they were also improvement recommendations rather than mandatory recommendations. So in that sense, the auditor is not required to get too upset about the not being done, but recognising that what we put forward is what we believe to be good practice, and we pick up from other organisations. So in overall terms, the key message here is this is a good report. The council's not got any significant weaknesses or concerns from an audit perspective, and that's a really good place to be. There are some recommendations, both residual from last year and new to this year, that we would want to be implemented. I think big picture terms, this is a good report, and we're happy with council's overall arrangements for achieving value for money. I'll stop there, Chair, and obviously more than happy to take any questions that members have.
Thank you very much, Paul. Councillor Grottek, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Paul. I just want to say we do welcome the positive position very much, but I also want to emphasise that colleagues and myself, we're certainly not complacent, and we do understand the need for areas of improvement. And so I would just like to ask the scrutiny chair to monitor carefully the progress within the suggested improvements within the report, and if she and her committee consider it appropriate, if there's a more detailed piece of work, to consider whether or not scrutiny or governance committee can look at the suggested improvements and the progress as we follow through on those. So thank you very much, and we assure you that we've taken your comments very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The improvements that actually haven't been addressed, is that because our resources are low?
Chief Executive, please. Yes, but we'll pick that up. As you well know, the Bob's replacement has taken some considerable time. Now that appointment is there, we will be accelerating that work, as Russell and I were talking about that this morning.
Okay. External audit usually goes straight to full council. I don't know whether the governance, the internal audit comes to us, but external audit goes straight to full council, or not to governance either. No, straight to full council. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Executive again, please. I may have misunderstood the Vice Chair. I think what the Vice Chair was asking whether or not the Scrutiny Committee, which I think would be appropriate, can track progress against the improvement recommendations.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, one of the improvement recommendations of this report is about capital budgeting and delivery. Interesting graph on about the profiling, and the management comments that further work is required to ensure accurate profile capital spends identified, etc., etc. Can you explain how you do that?
Thank you. Yeah, this is an age-old issue. I think in not just our authority that optimism and capital bids are put in at the initial outset to bid for money that goes through our budget process are always slightly over-optimistic. I think there's a number of drivers to that, which I could speak for 10 minutes on, but I won't. But yes, it's all about getting better grip of those decisions that initially approve a capital project for inclusion in the capital programme, and then have a more robust challenge on that. We have set out, and I think the Chief Executive has said previously, we are enhancing our project management around capital projects and large revenue projects as well. That they are just as important to be properly managed, and we brought in extra resource, which was primarily aimed at the vessel project in the first instance, but we're always going to try and use that resource to improve our project management. It is on our agenda, and but it all basically comes down to better business plan, initial outset, plus more honest forecasting. I think there's a feeling that if people say that they're not going to spend the money, it may be taken away, rather than say, well, I put a bid in now in 2023, but I'm not going to spend it until 2025. How does that get evaluated? But honestly, if you've got a capital programme, that is probably the time scale you have before you start spending.
Thank you. Councillor Bedford, please.
Thanks for the report. I know that 7 of the 8 recommendations were not addressed, and 2 of those are related to lack of workforce. I attended a workshop this week, a really helpful workshop about a strategic plan for the workforce for the council. So hopefully that will help address these 2 recommendations.
Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, Councillor Bedford sort of, yeah, in a way. But yeah, within this report, there seems to be a theme, and the Chief Executive has alluded to it as well with one of the questions, that the amount of capacity within the authority at this particular point in time is a challenge, whether it's in children's services, adult services, waste, housing. It's a common theme. We did have a workshop on it earlier this week. But it's not going to go away, is it? It's not going to get easy in the short term for us. It's not going to be something which we can spend our way out of in the short term. So I just think we need to be very aware of it, try and be as innovative as we possibly can to try and resolve some of the issues. And I think it also comes back to partnership as well. We've spoken in the past about what partnership is, what partnership means. It's easy to band around and say we're in partnership, but I think if we can work in true partnership, using skills and expertise from outside the organisation, whether it's in health, social care or wherever, perhaps that would be some way of being a bit more innovative. But it does worry me every time we have a report. The risk does seem to come back to how thin and how fragile staffing is across the whole organisation. So I think the workshop that we had earlier this week can't be a standalone one. I think we need to really keep our eye on workforce, because everything just starts to creak and wobble before we know it if we're not careful.
Thank you. Councillor Watt, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a comment on page 51, which is headed follow-up of previous recommendations. I notice that 4 of the 5 recommendations have not been activated. I just wonder if there's any serious concerns about this.
Okay, thank you. Chief Executive, please. I think it would be, I think the auditor said it itself, and I won't speak for the auditor. He said, can I remind you, this was a good report with some improvement recommendations, not mandatory recommendations. So you need to read these in context that they were good practice recommendations, which I said have slipped through staffing shortages, which we will be seeking to address. So I don't see them as being of a major concern to the authority, but they are something that we need to take seriously and address, which is why I think scrutiny, having a look at the progress against those, would be sensible. Thank you very much. Councillor Mumford, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I ask the Chief Executive, please, do we need to make a second recommendation that the progress of the recommended improvements come to scrutiny, or shall I just put it on the scrutiny work plan?
I would get out to be in the minutes, Chairman, and I would say that if you work with me to put it on the work plan, we will undertake to do so, and that can be minuted as such. Thank you very much. Councillor Sims, please.
I just wanted to say really that, again, this report is indicative that the direction of travel the council's moving in is positive. I mean, the auditor's job is to find faults, and I absolutely approve of them finding faults, but essentially this is a bit like the frog jumping halfway to the edge of the pond. It's never ever going to get to the edge of the pond, but it gets closer and closer and closer. So we're never going to get there, but I think it's just want to, as I said, highlight the direction of travel, and this is very positive, and I think overall doing a pretty good job.
Thank you. So could I have Paul, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously helpful discussion. I think the point about scrutiny overseeing the sort of implementation of the recommendations is very helpful. I think what I would say is that with the nature of improvement recommendations is that whilst they are that nature, what we do see historically on some of these things is if recommendations of any audit nature, whether they're from ourselves or from internal audit colleagues, are sort of left, they can build up into something bigger. So that's why I think the proposed action is very helpful. So I just wanted to make that point, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul. So could I have a proposer, please, for this recommendation that we receive and accept the report? Councillor Mumford, seconder, please. Councillor Legg. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Paul, for joining us this morning to present this report. And I'd also like to thank Russell very much indeed for all his hard work overseeing all of this, and indeed our staff who as we've just heard, and we know, are very much under-resourced, and for their efforts in order to be able to, for our auditor to be able to give such a positive report of this about the council is really good news, and they've done an excellent job in looking after our council's finances and so on, in light of the lack of resource. So big thank you to them, and it's a positive news story for this council. Thank you. I'd like to move on now to item 11 on our agenda, which is a report of our Chief Executive. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief. As you mentioned in Chairman's announcements, Aisling has resigned from the authority, and we wish her all the best in her new future. But in the meantime, obviously, we now move to filling that position. As it's a chief officer position, it's a member appointment, not officer appointment, and therefore we need to set up a member panel. Your current standing orders, which was brought to my attention by the head of HR, is for 3 members to be put forward. I'm suggesting to you that it should be 5 in light of the seniority of the role and the importance of the role. And the role of this panel would be to firstly review the role profile itself and make sure that you're still happy with the role as it is. The second is to agree with HR and myself the process of recruitment, i.e. sub-panels, whether we want external advisors, those sorts of things. And thirdly, the panel to interview any applicants and for you to make a recommendation to full council for approval of the offer of employment. I just wanted members and the public to be aware. I have announced it previously, but as Aisling is leaving the authority, I thought it prudent in order to transfer current responsibilities from Aisling so that we had continuity during this process. And I'm pleased to say that Justine Davies, who's with us today, has agreed to temporarily take on the role of Director of Children's Services, and Scott will take on the statutory role of Director of Adult Social Care. Those are roles that absolutely need to be identified within this authority, and our regulators have been informed that temporary arrangement has been made until you make a permanent appointment. So the report, Chairman, is to ask for a panel of 5 members to work alongside myself and the Head of Human Resources to expedite the recruitment.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief Executive. As personally, I need to sit on this panel, and we need 4 other councillors, please, for the panel. So could I have nominations, please, for councillors to sit on this panel? Councillor Mumford?
I'd like to propose Vice Chair, Councillor Grotty.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for Councillor Grotty? Councillor Sims, thank you. Councillor Bedford?
Sorry, no.
Okay, all right. Councillor Williams?
Yeah, I had a separate question. I just first wanted to echo your comments of thanks towards Aisling that you made at the start of the meeting, Chairman. But it might be after we've nominated people, but I was going to ask the Chief Executive, I'd like this to move relatively swiftly, but there's no time scale, no indication of timelines in the report. Do you have anything in mind about when you would like to conclude the process by?
Can you hear me? Yeah. I mean, well, I would like it as soon as possible, but I want members absolutely to be involved in that recruitment process. I mean, I could have gone out to advert, today, but I think the mood from members was they wanted the opportunity to influence the role profile. So, I mean, if we can get that process done within the next number of weeks, there's no reason why we can't then move to advert. It's likely that, unless an individual is between jobs, that there's going to be a 3-month notice period for somebody of that. So, if you said 2 weeks for us to get to a point where members are happy with the process and the role profile, and then a month for an advert, and then 3 months, you're talking probably about 4 to 4.5 months before somebody would actually be in permanent position, would be my guess.
Okay, thank you. From the chair, I would like to nominate you, Councillor Williams, to this panel in light of your being lead member for adults and children. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Sims. Thank you. Councillor Grottick.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Mumford as Chair of Scrutiny, please.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Legg. Thank you. Councillor Marcus.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Bedford. Very welcome.
Okay. Could I have a seconder for Councillor Bedford, please? Councillor Williams. Thank you. Councillor Mumford.
I was going to nominate Councillor Sims, but I don't know whether he wants to stand on it.
Yeah, we've got.
Okay.
Yeah, but.
Thank you.
Okay. So we've got nominations for Councillor Grottick, Councillor Williams, Councillor Mumford, and Councillor Bedford. Proposed and seconded. All those in favour of those nominations? That's it. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you for the report, Chief Executive.
Sorry, Chairman, could I just ask my question?
Yes, cool.
Can I ask who our Contact Guardian is in the interim period?
I've yet to nominate that particular position, but my guess would be it would be the Director of Adult Services. She tends to be adults rather than children's in most authorities, so I guess it will be Scott, but he's not back until Monday for me to ask him.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we move on now to the last item in part one, which is item 12, the Town Hall Cultural Centre and Museum Shared Prosperity Fund bids, which is in the hands of Nicola. Thank you, Nicola.
Good morning, members. And yes, a short report really just to help us with our task, which is to assemble the capital funding package for the delivery stage of the Cultural Centre and Museum project. As you know, we already have National Lottery funding and Arts Council funding in place. And in September, we did put a bid in for Shared Prosperity Fund for the remaining capital, which was a £7 million deficit. The Economic Prosperity Board deferred that decision in October, as you recall, and there have been ongoing discussions with the Good Growth team about how best to achieve that funding from that Shared Prosperity Fund. And they've suggested that we split the ask into a variety of different funding bids across the whole of the Shared Prosperity Fund programme, which means now, just to make it a little more tricky, we're now putting in 5 funding bids to cover that £7 million capital ask. Of course, the first part of that has already been agreed. So for this year's work, we've got National Lottery funding in place, and also Shared Prosperity have already agreed through the Economic Prosperity Board, I think last month, was £350,000 for this year's work for consultancy work. So that leaves us 3 further bids that are in the process of being assessed and are in the hands of the growth team at the moment, that you sought approval for and wanted to see before we confirmed that our bids were to be assessed. So those applications, three applications, amount to 5.85 million and are set out in the appendices to this report. You'll see that there's a lot of commonality between the bids. So what we agreed with the Good Growth team was that the Word document that's associated with the bid application forms will be common across all of the bids, just so that whoever's assessing them understands the entirety of the project. But of course, there'll be slight variations to make sure that the bids do align with those calls. So in the strategic fit, you'll see a slight variation to make sure it fits with that call. And the amounts across each of the bids is slightly different depending on what's available within those pots, but still available to bid against. So So we hope you'll be able to support these bids. There's a further bid to submit by the end of this month for £800,000, and that will then give, in our entirety, the full capital ask for this programme as it stands at the moment. So the recommendations are set out on page 1 of the agenda pack, and that is that we approve the submission of those bids and with the necessary due diligence as we get the grant fund agreements back to the council. They'll of course be reported back to you for approval. Over to you, members. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Nicola. Councillor Dean, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think it's important just to recognise in a public environment that there are concerns about this project, about the ongoing viability once it's delivered. We need to do a very robust business case to prove to ourselves and to the Museum Association and the wider public that the entity at the end will be sustainable, will not be a millstone round our neck or anyone else's neck. So I think it's important to recognise that, but we're not at the stage yet to make a decision on that, but that's the work that's going to happen this year. The other kind of major concern I think members have, I don't know if the wider community knows about it, but the timescales for these funds are very tight, very tight. And again, we need to do a lot of work this year to try and make those achievable. So those are very critical questions, and it's very difficult to come up with the answers at the moment. That's what this year is about, to try and work those things out. So just wanted to stress really that what we're doing today is we're just, it's just the first line of the recommendation. So we're just approving the submission of the bids to the Shared Prosperity Fund. So I would like to propose that we scrap the rest of that recommendation and just literally have that first sentence just for clarity, so that we're all clear about what we're recommending today. I would also just like to add, and I said this in a previous meeting that didn't get recorded, so I'd like the public to take this on board. This money that we're applying for, we can't spend it on Park House, we can't spend it on housing. This is specifically for this project, so it's not a choice. It's just the funding that is available. And I'd also like to stress the point that just because we're doing this project doesn't mean we're not still working on housing, we're not still working on the issues we've got at Park House and all the other things that we talk about, waste, etc. So I'll shut up now and I'll just propose that recommendation, but just the first line of it. So the members approve the submission of cumulative bids for capital funding to the Shared Prosperity Fund. Full stop. That's it.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dean. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, I kind of support everything that Councillor Dean has said and clarifying the recommendation to make it short and sweet. I just want to check with Qualified War Officer that due diligence that is mentioned in the rest of that recommendation as it is written is actually carried out in standing orders, and that it will come back to members, etc., etc.
Yes, I can confirm it will be. The Council's financial regulations that form part of the standing order says that any grant offer over £50,000 has to come back to full council with a full report, which would include due diligence.
In that case, I'd like to second the amendments for the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sims, please.
I think I broadly agree with truncating the recommendation, because really the second sentence actually should be a given anyway, shouldn't it, really? I mean, that's just what we should be doing. However, the second sentence is actually useful in a sense, because it does highlight our potential pitfalls and awkward milestones along the way.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, I think my question's to Nicola, and it's just really wanting reassurance that is the Shared Prosperity Fund now working as it should? I've had various meetings with staff from Learn Silly about projects being a year behind, and I've listened to Councillor Sims and Councillor Gross, and I think Councillor Marcus is involved in various things. And from what I've been hearing about the Shared Prosperity Fund, it hasn't been filling me with confidence so far. So again, just a bit of reassurance that the flow of funds is happening now, as opposed to getting further and further behind schedule.
Thank you, Nicola.
We're still waiting. So the first funding that we've been awarded is the £353,000. We are still waiting on the grant funding agreement. So, like all of these programmes, there's a relative high pain of bureaucracy that we have to go through, which is the due diligence, of course. It's no worse than the RDF or ESF, European funding programmes. In fact, it's probably a bit simpler. But yes, these things are always painful, but the process is there for a reason, isn't it? And we are starting to see some of these funds flow through. The wider programme is probably subject to another discussion with members. I think accessing that for the islands will be challenging. We have a discussion later today about an island facilitator role that's been funded through the programme, which will help local people access the funding, which I hope will help flow those funds down more easily to the island community.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Bedford, please.
It's a question for Nicola, please. When were the estimates done, and who undertook them? How are these figures arrived at?
So the figures arrived at for the build programme itself are done through cost consultancy. So we use quantity surveyors to give validation to the proposed plans that the architects and design team have come up with. Of course, the next stage of work this year is to validate those costs again. So it was an iterative process. There has to be a freeze at a point in time where we say this is what we're bidding against. And you remember, members, you approved an outline business case earlier in the year. We're still using those figures, but part of the work this year is to revisit those figures, revisit the designs, etc. So it will be iterative. They are as up to date as they can be. There was a design team meeting yesterday, so all those parties were around the table again looking at the designs and the costs. And that will continue throughout the project until we get to contract and we go in invitations to tender. We won't know what the true costs will be. And like all projects, we'll keep an eye on those costs because it's important that it is delivered within budget. So, yeah, it's as up to date as it can be at this point in time.
Thank you. And the other thing I wanted to say was just about what Councillor Dean said. The community are saying things like, why isn't the money going to Park House? Why isn't the money going for this? I think it has to be really clear from today that this is what we can only spend the money on if we get it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bedford. So we have a proposer and a seconder for an amendment of the first recommendation to the sentence only that members approve the submission of further bids for capital funding to the Shared Prosperity Fund, full stop, and not the rest of that recommendation. So we have a proposer and seconder for that. Can I have a vote, please, from you on all those in favour? So that's unanimous. Thank you. And we have another two recommendations there. So could I have a proposer and seconder for those? Or have you already recommended that?
There's only one recommendation on...
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm confused. Okay. Yes.
Come up with another couple.
Yeah, okay. I'm looking too far down the page. Thank you very much. So, yeah, that was the amended recommendation, so we voted on it, so that's done. Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you, Nicola, for all your work on the report. That concludes part one of our agenda today. Part two is for information only. So with that, I will close the meeting. Thank you very much.